This is Gabriel Fernandez, a bright, curious, and kind-hearted 8-year-old boy from Palmdale, California. He loved going to school, learning, and being around his classmates, but behind his smile was a life filled with pain. On May 24, 2013, Gabriel died after months of torture at the hands of his own mother and her boyfriend. His story became one of the most tragic and most important child abuse cases in recent history. How did this happen? Who failed him? And what has changed since? Gabriel was born on February 20th, 2005. He spent his early years with his great uncle and his partner, who raised him with love and care. But at the age of 7, Gabriel was suddenly taken from their home and returned to live with his biological mother, Pearl Fernandez, and their boyfriend, Isaro Aguirre. Within weeks, Gabriel began to show signs of abuse, bruise, cuts, and fear. He asked his teacher heartbreaking questions like, "Is it normal to bleed?" His teacher, Jennifer Garcia, became concerned and repeatedly reported signs of abuse to authorities. Multiple calls were made to the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS, but Gabriel was never removed from the home.
Michelle, Mark, there really isn't a reprieve in this case. Each day of this trial, very difficult. On the stand today, Gabriel's first grade teacher, she spent the most time with Gabriel and said that he opened up to her about the abuse he was experiencing at home.
Written in the shaky, unsure handwriting of a first grader, Gabriel's teacher reads a note she found hidden in the 8-year-old's desk a few days after she learned of his brutal death.
"I love you, Mom, and Gabriel is a good boy."
Jennifer Garcia said Gabriel confided in her early on in the school year, telling her he was beaten at home. Garcia immediately reported this to the Department of Children and Family Services.
She's like, "Well, sometimes my mom makes me bleed." And I said, "Well, where do you bleed?" And he said, "Well, on my bottom." Because she hits me with a belt. And he's like, "You know that part with the metal on it?" He's like, "That part."
Over the next few months, Garcia said she saw repeated bruises, burns, wounds, and other injuries on the boy, and said in at least one instance, Gabriel came to school wearing girls' clothes. Defendant Isario Aguirre remained emotionless with his eyes on the table in front of him as Garcia described seeing Gabriel become more withdrawn and lash out in anger when questioned about his injuries.
"Are you sure that that's what really happened?" And then he did eventually tell me, and he was like really angry, and he said, "Well, it's because my mom shot me in the face with a BB gun."
Garcia said she called DCFS multiple times and then realized Gabriel was suffering more abuse because of it.
I didn't want to call. I didn't know what to do. I don't know how I could look at his face and, not be able to assure him that that wasn't going to happen again when I couldn't say that.
When Gabriel was absent for several days, Garcia was told he had been sent to live with family in Texas. The teacher hoped this was true. Roughly
Social
a week
workers
later,
are trained
Gabriel
professionals
was
whose
dead.
job is to protect children from harm. When they receive a report of suspected abuse, they are legally required to investigate and take action. In Gabriel's case, 4 DCFS employees were assigned. Reports were closed without proper visits. Warnings were ignored. Eventually, those 4 workers were charged with felony child abuse and falsifying public records. Later on, those charges were dismissed by the judge. Gabriel was failed, not just by one person, but by a system that didn't respond when it mattered the most. This wasn't just one failure. It was a breakdown across the board. Gabriel's teacher spoke up. His family members expressed concern, but over and over again, nothing changed. The police, medical professionals, and social workers all had opportunities to intervene. Why were warnings dismissed? Gabriel had rights, but having rights means nothing if your rights aren't protected.
Robert Fernandez told the court today that listening to that 911 tape, hearing the voice of his late wife, and knowing that they were talking about his 8-year-old grandson, Gabriel Fernandez, was just too much.
Because he had sworn that he was going to bring Gabriel back, and he did it.
He was talking about the defendant in this case, Isaro Aguirre. Everybody calls him Tony. He's on trial for the torture murder of little 8-year-old Gabriel. Fernandez's daughter, Pearl Fernandez, will be tried separately on the same charges. Fernandez told the court that he and his late wife who died of complications from diabetes 8 months after Gabriel died in May of 2013, had raised Gabriel for nearly 8 years. They thought they had complete custody of him. Thought they did.
And the deputy said no. I don't know what he started talking about. We had to go to court.
He was talking about the night deputy sheriffs went to his house and told him and his wife that they could not get Gabriel back. His daughter and her boyfriend had taken Gabriel, and they wanted him back. And they were told that the document that Pearl Fernandez had signed, relinquishing custody, was not valid, and that the mother was entitled to have her son back.
That she had the legal right to revoke that at any time.
Sheriff's Detective David Nisenhoff, who was there that night, explained to the jury what he told the grandparents, that they could not keep Gabriel. Gabriel then moved in with his mother and her boyfriend, and Fernandez said he saw very little of him over the next 8 months, 2 or 3 times at the most, because his daughter wouldn't allow it. And then he said he made a promise to Gabriel.
One of these days, Spring, let him come home. And I promised that to him.
Wounded.
Something brings it back, and it's just all those emotions are there. It's not any easier.
Ezekiel was 12 and Virginia 10 when they witnessed the torture inflicted by their own mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Isauro Aguirre. Living in a household gripped by fear, they testified about the bat, the BB guns, the box where Gabriel was confined, accusations that he was gay. To this day, Contreras says Gabriel's siblings don't let themselves have fun, no matter how much he tries.
Unfortunately, I think this is something that's going to affect them the rest of their lives, one way or another.
For him, it's personal. He takes aim at the Department of Children and Family Services.
What they did is almost as bad as what Pearl and Isauro did.
4 had been charged, but the appeals court dismissed the case, ruling that the workers did not have a legal responsibility to care.
I would show everybody the picture of Gabriel in the hospital. Because no matter how many times I saw Gabriel smile, when I think of Gabriel now, I picture him in that hospital bed, not waking up. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to that have chosen a career path in social services because they say they want to make a difference. How many people have named their children after Gabriel? My 5-year-old son's middle name is Gabriel. Those that have heard or seen his story, at least those people are going to do their part. And that, I know that children have been saved due to his story.
Arnold Contreras testifies that the death of his son changed his life and the lives of Gabriel's siblings.
The family will never be the same. Everybody was affected by it.
Contreras says he is racked with guilt. He was serving time, unable to watch over his son.
Helpless, guilty. I should have been there.
Had he been able, he would have stopped Gabriel's mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Isauro Aguirre, from taking Gabriel from the grandparents who adored him.
Pearl never showed any type of love towards Gabriel.
Contreras has been in court to see the pictures of Gabriel at the time of his death. Too awful to put on TV.
In 2018, Isauro Aguirre was sentenced to death for the murder of Gabriel Fernandez. Pearl Fernandez received life in prison without parole. Gabriel Fernandez's story is one of pain, loss, and failure, but it can also be a lesson in accountability and responsibility, in the power of standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Gabriel's story didn't end with his death. His case became a national conversation about child abuse, foster care, and accountability. A Netflix documentary brought his story to millions. His name is now a symbol of pain, loss, and failure. His face reminds us of how important it is to speak up and to never forget his story. Gabriel should still be here today. His life was short, but it mattered. He deserved love, safety, and protection, things every child should have. This documentary is a tribute to his memory and a reminder of what happens when silence wins.